Welcome back to Don't Waste the Chaos. I'm your host, Kerri Roberts, and today's episode is one you're not going to want to multitask through. We're diving into the intersection of strength, identity, and purpose with someone who embodies what it means to keep evolving, even when life changes the rules. My guest today is Matt Vincent. He's a two-time Highland Games World Champion, host of the Not Dead Yet podcast, a founder of a multi-million-dollar apparel and mindset brand that's helped thousands of people reconnect to the fire they used to have. Matt has traveled the world from filming with Indian motorcycles to serving with nonprofits in Uganda, all while leading retreats, coaching men through personal reinvention, and creating a movement around radical accountability, mindset, and fulfillment. He's written books, he's recorded over 400 episodes of his own show, and he's built a following that's as raw as it is real. Today, we're talking about what it takes to reinvent yourself after life knocks you sideways, how to lead with accountability and humility, and how to build a life that's strong, sustainable, and deeply meaningful. So if you've ever felt like you've outgrown an old version of yourself, or you're trying to rebuild who you are while keeping your purpose intact, this conversation is for you. So let's get into it. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's jump into, I told you, before we got started, I have a million things that I'd love to chat with you about. You're a fascinating person. I think the last time I saw you was in a sweat tent in St. Louis. So
It is.
so I'm excited to jump in today. So let's talk about your identity first and foremost. So you built your identity around being a strength athlete, whether it's been Highland Games or strongman or all of that. But after injuries and transitions, you've had to really redefine who you were when that competitive chapter closed. How did you navigate that reinvention process, and what did it teach you about your leadership, both personally and in the communities you lead?
Let me address that to the identity around being an athlete that isn't any longer, and how do I recalibrate it?
Yeah.
Well, one, I had to. And I also didn't do it wasn't eloquent the way I got through it. I bashed myself through it the same way I kind of have most of other areas of my life, and figuring out as I go. But typically comes from some point of having to recognize this internal feeling of change has to occur. And if not, what are we doing? Because we can't go backwards anymore.
What would you say to someone who's afraid to let go of an old identity, or maybe they don't even recognize that they need to, but it's no longer serving them?
The first thing comes around with self-awareness, right? Like if we don't have some awareness around what changes need to be made, they're really tough to make. And a lot of time we let our ego get in the way with judgment of letting go of, or time invested in how do I abandon the thing that got me here, or any of that. But if whatever the reason is that it's time to transition to the next thing in life, for me, it was recognizing that the pursuit of the first one is what I fell in love with more than the actual thing it got me. Because that's what got me started on it. I didn't start on that path with the plan of becoming a world champion that built a brand. I started on that path with wanting to know what I was capable of.
That's big. What were some of the indicators to you? I mean, other than your injuries, what were some of the indicators, the tension inside of yourself that let you know, like, it's time to pivot, I have to?
So the injuries really did it. And so kind of my story, right, is I had a knee injury that was a bit nagging for a couple years, and I won a world championship in 2014, and then second place in 2015, 2016, took second place again. And at the end of that year, decided I'm going to get my ACL fixed. I'm going to do a year of rehab. I'll document it. I will have that content to share around knee recovery and coming back to win another world championship. That's the plan. And it didn't go that way. First surgery didn't go well, and ended up with 9 more surgeries and a total knee replacement. And so through documenting that recovery process and vlogging and writing like I was at the time, I remember having a day between surgery 4 and 5, I believe, that I realized like, oh, we're never going to compete again. That like we're no longer, the goalpost has moved. We're not trying to get back to best in the world. We're trying to get back to physically functional. Because I can't walk up and down stairs. I can't travel. I can't do any of the things that I had been thinking I was going to take on whenever I got done competing to begin with. So like any physical pursuit was basically taken off the charts. So for survival, I leaned into entrepreneurship. And I started applying all the same things I'd learned about being able to delay gratification and being able to look at my mistakes without judgment and change things to continue getting better as an athlete long term. Like, I know what consistent approach it takes and for how long to get good at a thing. And so recognizing that I was never going to be able to go back, it was really curious to forge what was going to be forward. The next thing that really captured my curiosity the way throwing had, or the Highland Games had, or strength had, was building my brand. And so it got all my attention, and I still didn't focus a ton of it on taking care of me yet. As, you triage and solve problems as they need to be solved. 2016, I lose my sport. 2017, I lose my regular career in the oil and gas industry by getting fired. I'm not focused. I'm focused on this shit. And they fired me for a good reason. But nonetheless, no matter how well your income is or any of this, if it gets cut in 50%, it ain't great.
That'll change a person.
So solving that problem first and putting me on the back burner for long enough to get safe. And then realizing that we're safe and I'm still unhappy and having to figure out the next thing. And for me, it was a lot being trapped in a life that was. All I could see in front of me was normalcy and average, and that believing this lie that the best things I'd ever accomplished were already done. And it took a long time to figure out some things to let me know that's not true. And to actually start believing it's not true. And then actually starting to take action to back that up. But it's been a long change, and I had to find community. Yeah. I had to find people to surround myself with, right? Like, I can recognize back in that last chapter of competing what I loved about it. And it was this endless pursuit of this unreasonable goal. It was the 20 guys that I got to spend time with every weekend when I'd go compete, that these other weirdos obsessed with this thing that doesn't need to be explained to them. And then all of it went away. And I was on an island. And I didn't know who I was going to be yet, but I know who I'm not anymore. And so that part of the hero's journey of going into the dark and starting to explore to find the new path and find in the unknown what does resonate with me now was a really important part of the journey. But it's scary.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good segue to talk about your communities. I've got to see a little bit of it and participate a little bit of it. I'd love to dive in deeper. So the Not Dead Yet community is built around this idea, I believe, of total accountability, confronting what's really holding us back. Talk to us about that community, when it formed, and then some of the surprising internal obstacles that you've discovered in yourself throughout that process.
Not Dead Yet is those things, and the overall umbrella we all fall under isn't, entrepreneurship or physical, building ourselves skill-wise there. It's really down around like having the realization that the life left in front of me is more important than anything I've done yet. That it's the life in front of me that I'm still in control of, that I get to create, that I get to build, and I am not obligated to operate by any of the rules that I've lived by thus far. And so being able to put that focus on the future instead of being defined by what we've done is a big shift for a lot of people. That is that coming out of the woods and realize I have checked all the supposed to boxes, and yet I still feel this way. I have the house, the white picket fence, the job, the career, the stability, and all that, and yet I'm completely fucking empty and alone. So how do I find that fire? How do I use curiosity to get into flow state to find all those things? This community has been great. We started opening up the gym for free on Sundays, and it's been a free place for the last 4 years that it's existed. And leaning into community creation is what even gave the spark to we should host retreats. But it was deciding to lean into community first for us, that we want to be surrounded by people that vibe with this. And if I can't find those people, then it is my obligation to me to find them. And so build a thing loud enough that draws them in. Build a big enough lighthouse, have enough credibility to be someone that people want to be, that you can give some type of solution. And that community, who you surround yourself with, has a giant impact on you. Look at the groups of people you were around growing up. Look at the house you were born into and what the environment was that you didn't pick and how much it did have a shape on you, your thoughts, your feelings, your limitations. So if that's true, then I need to be as intentional with the one that I choose going forward as possible so that they affect me the way I want. But that takes knowing your intention. And if we don't have awareness and we don't have intention, then no actions are going to be that good. We have to recalibrate the front end to know where the compass is going before we can start applying force to it. Kind of without a port in mind, no winds are good. And then the opposite side of that, right, is a good sailor can go into the wind or against the wind as long as he knows the direction he wants to go. And so how do I use the ups and the downs to fuel the direction I'm going, period? But there's going to be both.
Well said. So you mentioned like build something loud enough or make sure your lighthouse is, big enough for those people to find you. Talk to me about some of the practical things you did to set yourself up for success with them.
First was lowering the barrier of entry for access. We make the gym free. I don't need anything from you. I want you to come in and get a feel for it. But if you want more accountability, we have more. The unfortunate side of that is what I realize is if people don't have any skin in the game, they don't care. If this could all be done for free, I would, but people have shown time and time again that unless they are invested, they will not show up and participate. So having the gym free only surrounds me with people that show up on their own, which is who I want to be around. They're not obligated. I don't owe them something, nor do they owe me. As far as being able to create content to build that, it is a bit trickier. But it is the same methodology that I learned from being an athlete. It has to be consistent. Like it has to be doing it every day. It has to be doing it the days I don't feel like it. It has to be staying in touch with and connecting with those people when no one else maybe is. Being able to look at that content when it's done consistent long enough to figure out what's working and what's not working. And do I want to continue down that path of what is working, right? Like just because something goes, let's say viral, if it's not on message, then I'm talking to the wrong people and it's not worth trying to go that route just to get more noise that isn't aligned with what I want. And that's a tough line to stay on when we use likes and measures and attention to decide the value of the thing we're doing. So for me to stay in that area of expertise, what I recognize as well is authenticity reads louder than anything else. And ultimately, who are we attracted to when it comes to leaders, or it comes to public speakers or any of these things? And for me, it is people that seem to live as authentically by their rules and like with conviction and toward their goals without looking for validation or permission to go for it. And so if that's what I'm attracted to, then those are the skills I need to learn. And so if I am going to create, and as this is something I decided years ago doing YouTube vlogs when I started getting questions in the comments about like, do a video about your tattoos, talk about this, what about this? And I don't want to make those. I don't want to make them. And does that hurt what may have grown followers? Sure. But then I might be stuck making content I don't want to make. And that's a job again. I'm not doing this because I want a job. I like working. But I don't want to feel obligation to show up as something that isn't me. And so the rule I made was like, I make for me first. And if it doesn't speak to a former version of me, it probably doesn't need to go out.
That is so counter what I hear from so many people from a marketing and sales perspective. Like see what is interacting with your people, take a look at your data, and then produce more of it. And so I love.
It depends on intention. What are we trying to accomplish? Is it just more? Right? Like, because two really great examples I would use of content that I've had happen in the last 12 months. Had a piece of content that I made from my personal page that was fun. It was simply Bonnie and I sitting by a fire for like 5 or 6 seconds. There's nothing going on. And all I wrote on top of the picture was, did you catch it? And then in the caption, I wrote about us doing nothing. Actually, just being still and enjoying each other's presence, and how doing less is often the answer instead of just work your way through it. Maybe actually taking a step back and enjoying the life you've created is a bit more valuable than continuing to solve a problem that only you see. So that was kind of the purpose of it, right? But because it's 5 seconds long, it'll get an extra look and it says, "What did you catch?" And people think it's a game, so they're trying to point it out. They're not ever reading the caption. So that video gets like 4.5 million something views or something like that. I pick up 0 new follows. The only people it's attracted to my site now are people that are frustrated there wasn't anything there and they don't align with any of my content. Go over to Not Dead Yet Life. We have a piece that goes viral about the floor and ceiling approach I teach, this minimum effective dose. For what reason it goes viral, who knows, but it does. That video, which is dead on target, speaks exactly to my overall mission and who I want to help solve problems, gets 3 million views, and we pick up 40,000 followers.
Aligned followers, yeah.
Yes. Which ultimately are, for a gross business side of it, they are leads. They are people to talk to. They are audience, but they are more aligned. You know, the other people didn't come over for mindset. I tricked them. This one's not. And so I give my audience of people that I want to coach enough respect to realize I'm not going to trick them into it.
And not that I wanted to get into it. I did not see us going into content today, but I think this
Sure. I've done it for a long time.
So good.
Like,
yeah, it's so good. And I also think this speaks to, in this, I love AI. I utilize AI for a lot of things, but this is such a timely message right now because, you know, in the next year, if even that long, we're not going to know what's real and what's generated. There's already a lot of that. But
I'm really excited about that, honestly.
I am too. I'm so curious to see where it goes.
I think that could solve a problem that we may not realize it may solve. So one of the things, let's look in transition if we're going to look at a little bit longer timeline of things. If we look at the boomers, and one of the biggest issues the boomers have is they believe everything online. Because if it got online and it got to publication, surely there's some type of fact checker, because what did they grow up with was 4 channels and Walter Cronkite. And anything that did get to the news, they did feel was vetted.
Yeah.
Right. There also was a lot more believement then that their government did have their best interest at heart. Currently, with the amount of media we have, we're kind of trapped as millennials in the in-between. But what I hope is, because of the advent of AI and all these things coming out, especially with this new app, Sora, that's like all AI video, we won't believe anything, which to me is better than believing everything. Like, we have to get, what does Don Miguel Ruiz refer to it as the 5th agreement? Open but cynical, or open but skeptical.
Yeah.
And so what I hope that comes with the advent of AI is our ability to critically think has to get better. And our idea of how to actually understand information has to come better, since knowledge will no longer have any gap of access, right? Like, I can ask any question I want and get the answers I want, but I don't have the ability to decipher whether or not the answer is good.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so interesting. I'm so curious to see where it goes. And
yeah, I'm not anti-AI at all. I use it a lot. I think it's a great tool. I think there's areas it's really useful. I think for refining ideas, I think for proofreading and polishing, I think converting audio into text is great. I think using it as a journal is a really fascinating way to go about it, because, you know, I say if I have 3 journal prompts of something really simple, there's one I do with clients, and it's, what brought me joy today? What stole my energy? What did I learn? Right? So if I answer those over the course of probably 6 months or 3 months or even a month, and have those all as digital, and I drop them into ChatGPT, I can now start data analyzation of my journal prompts. I can start asking it, what is the most common thread that I'm running into over the last month? What's the biggest self-sabotage technique that I'm having struggle with? What's consistently the thing that drains my most of my energy? What are 3 steps that help me get out of this? You know, what's the most important thing I learned over the last month? So now I can start analyzing things that way to give myself more clarity.
Yeah.
So I think using it in that pursuit is really powerful.
Yeah, and for those of us who don't have strong skill sets in pattern recognition, it certainly cuts to the crap on that. You said something about critical thinking, and from a professional standpoint, I have seen that be a skill set that has really reduced in the workforce. And so if that can increase again, I think that'll be a beautiful thing.
It's a really weird spot, right? Because we are in a, above all else, capitalist driven culture. So the top end under like umbrella is maximize profit. That's for my government. That's for all the major companies. That's why when a company gets bought out and investors come on board, the typical owner wants to leave because it's no longer attached to purpose and it's only attached to make more. That's us. That is the God we have chose to serve. And we're currently at a point that I'm not sure we've realized yet that more won't be the answer. But because we do that, they sell to us on fear and scarcity and all these things, and we fall for it. We've also proven to them time and time again that we pay more attention to things that we're stressed about, dislike, create negative feelings more than we ever do the things that we like. So that's what gets served. But living in that capitalist thing, I'm not pro or against it as much as I am aware of that's what's doing it. Thinking that there's some altruistic thing behind it, there isn't. This is it. Any methodology used to a tactic is to fix that. You know, our healthcare system, our education system are all built basically on Henry Ford's assembly line of how do I make the most quantity of okay shit instead of how do I make really good things less often. But America's not interested in good things less often. We are deal wanting, we are quantity wanting, we are all you can eat buffets, we are home runs at the bottom of the World Series. Like, we don't love the guys that are base hit dudes. This is what we want.
Yeah.
This is what we're turned on the most by. And unfortunately, a lot of this is a reflection of that.
That's so true and well said. And something that I hope, if someone's listening to this and they haven't thought of it in that way, it's time to think critically and really be intentional. And you mentioned earlier about self-awareness, like the ability to recognize a pattern in ourselves, whether AI helps us recognize the pattern or we're just coming up against some personal friction, but being able to recognize that and first name it and then start working through it. We've got so much opportunity right now. I'm so excited for where we can go. Like, I feel very, very hopeful about it.
I think as long as we can remove that boundary of still the, you know, we have the awareness to be able to check our hormones and do all this, right? And yet some people, especially men, still have this barrier in their head of like, if I get on HRT and I have to supplement testosterone, somehow that means I'm less of a man than I was before. It's fascinating to me. I don't struggle with that. I don't understand, right? Like I'm pro doing things that give me the results I want, period.
Yeah.
I don't have a moral issue to any of it, right? Like, I don't think testosterone is morally wrong. I don't think anything really is. I think that's up to the user. I think you deciding to hold yourself back for any number of those reasons is really fascinating. Why? Who are you a martyr to continue to suffer through that for? Ethically, I know what aligns with me and what I want to talk about and not talk about, like what I said with content creation. But people get hung up on the moral side of it.
It is wild thinking about peptides, like specifically GLP-1. When I first started doing the research, when GLP-1s really got popular, I was like, okay, I need to dig into some research and see. Some of the hate that was online was like, individuals with diabetes will not have access to these. And so I was like, let me first find that out. Is that true? If med spas get allocations of these, or, you know, if outside of a clinical, let's say clinical
essentially they're only available for rich white people.
Yeah. Like, is that
true?
A problem to me? Yeah. Do I have an issue with this? What does this actually look like? And I did my research and I made my decision. And at 43, I look and feel better than I have in a really long time, probably since 29. And my husband's 47, same thing with HRT, like he's been on that for years. And I've been on testosterone as well, and did the research. How do we feel about this? And it's like, well, at the end of the day, if it's positively impacting our intimate life, energy, sleep, all of these things, the vanity metric is, I love it. I feel confident because I love the body that I'm in, but it's really the way that I feel and the way that I perform. And I get everybody has to like do their research and think it through, but I'm like you. I am so curious about a person who would limit themselves on something that could change their life in a positive way. Like I had a therapist tell me one time, don't set rules for yourself that even you can't meet.
Yeah. One of the rules I live by at this point in my life is I don't have an opinion without an experience. And GLPs, those type of things were something I definitely did. GLP being a peptide that like I would say my first one that I had like a no way. And like not only a no way, but like almost an offense, right? Of, well, if everyone gets fit, then why do I have any status of being in shape? And I've worked really fucking hard for it, right? And I've dedicated and learned and did all these things to lose this 100 pounds and change my body. How dare someone get it easier? And that to me is shifting a lot of blame on the medication and not the user error. And my judgment was around the medication. How people end up using this thing, it's going to get abused, man. We abuse cheeseburgers. So like, I can't line my opinion based on what I think people will do wrong with it. So for me personally, after realizing that was one of the egos, one of the reasons my ego wasn't interested in trying it was some status game about how I've lost weight naturally, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, I've lost weight using testosterone and training, and it's horseshit. It's a horseshit lie that I'm telling myself to feel better. When in fact, I want more people better. And so how have I used this tool? I started about 3 months ago with trizepatide to kind of figure out what's going on with it. I got interest from it, listening to Naval Ravikant talk about GLPs on Chris Williamson's podcast and talking about decreased inflammation and decreased brain fog, more clarity, long-term anti-aging, and all of the other side effects, not weight loss. I personally don't have that much interest in weight loss. So why not find out? And so what I got prescribed originally, working with my hormone doctors at Core Medical, was, I think it's like a standard dose, like 2.5 milligrams a week. And that for some people is up to like 15 milligrams from what I understand. So I started taking 0.1 every 3 days, which is already a sub dose of what recommendation is. After 2 weeks, noticed a bit of a difference in how I felt. I'll get into that afterwards. But then since then, I've really worked on backing dose off to figuring out what's the least of this I need to take to get the effect I want. Also then, what is the effect I'm trying to get? Because it's not measured by weight loss. So for me, what I notice now that I'm 3 months into it and I'm taking 0.03, 0.04 every 3 days, the clarity portion of it, I do think is really fascinating. As a big guy and been a big guy for a long time, like I never had to eat to gain weight. Like I don't have insecurity around being small. So like I didn't gain that identity to answer lack of somewhere else. I got really big and strong because I wanted to see how good I could be at sports. Right. And so, I mean, I graduated high school weighing 270 pounds. Like I'm a big guy. So losing weight has always been more of a struggle for me than gaining. I can get big and strong very easily, but it's going to come at the cost of fat and size. So not having what I would refer to at this point as food noise for 3 months is really fascinating. That like I almost have to strategically remember to fuel because I'm not hungry. And I still get side effects of not hungry, which is me getting hangry and me getting short and me getting not feeling optimal or any of those things. But now I fuel with purpose for that instead of any of that needing comfort reward system that came from the food thing I was doing, or using food as a distraction, or instead of being bored, I go to food. Like whatever the dopamine fix was, it seems to give me a wider gap to make a different decision instead of just being reactionary to that feeling.
The process I'm in right now was on it for a long time. Low dose, same deal, maintenance type dose, I guess is what they would call it, instead of like weight loss seeking dose. Now getting off of it, I'm trying to figure out, how do I feel? And do I like the new feeling? Is there something about it that I'd like to stay on? Like just listening to our bodies for me has been, the food noise has been huge for me. I totally agree. Like the distraction of food. And then also I was on a path to not eliminate alcohol, but test out sobriety in that way. And that has been a huge part of it. Like I could give a crap about alcohol. Therefore, I also could give a crap about the social eating and the happy hours and, like all of that stuff. And that is so beautiful. But that's the goal that I had, or maybe even a goal that I didn't necessarily know at the beginning, but it's been a beautiful outcome of it, is forgetting about the obsession that I had, or even really learning that I had an obsession with it in the first place.
Sure. It's fascinating to me that alcohol is the drug we've backed in this country as like it's totally cool. It's wildly destructive. And I don't want to put it into some category of we should do this if we do that. Like I'm pro all things. I want adults to be able to make as many choices as they can for their life. I'm not interested in this governing body, at which this point I know doesn't have my best interest, deciding what I can and can't fucking do.
Yeah.
Not interested.
Yes.
And that goes for everyone. I want everyone to have the right to do whatever they want to do, as long as it's not ruining someone else's life in the pursuit. And that's your own thing to get behind. But trying to build legislation to accomplish that hasn't done well in the past, and I don't think it's a great idea. But what you're saying around alcohol and using GLPs for that, I also notice I don't want to doom scroll as much. Like it seems like the best way I can describe it, right, is me doom scrolling or grabbing a snack or unaligned habits, we'll call it. They're kind of on my autopilot system. And so like I don't realize I'm checking my phone and doom scrolling until I've been. Right?
Yeah.
And I seem to have a bit of a window there of like, if muscle memory grabs my phone and I'm scrolling, I have a little bit longer to catch and be like, this doesn't do anything for me. What am I doing? The same with going to grab a snack. Of like, what are we doing? I'm not even hungry. Like even a bite in, whereas before, by then I'm fucking in it. So I think that part's been really kind of interesting to have some awareness around. Alcohol, man. I just don't know anyone. I've never had any story where someone was like, I just was avoiding alcohol for like 10 years and then I tried it and everything's been better.
I know. Yes.
Like there's not a single one of those. Like it's never the transition is like, whew, I just had to add alcohol back in.
Yeah. No, that's not the answer. And now I can look at it in such a healthier way. Like my 15th anniversary, wedding anniversary is on Friday. And I haven't drank anything in over a month. And that's really common with me. I just don't think about alcohol. But I know I'm excited. Like on Friday night, T and I will have a nice glass of red with the steak that we're going to have. And it's going to be lovely, but it's not going to alter my personality. It's going to be pleasurable as part of our experience. It's going to be celebratory, but it's not going to be like, I have to have this to celebrate. And the odds of me having more than 2 glasses is almost impossible because I haven't had more than 2 glasses of anything for a year and a half because I just don't give a shit to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think alcohol is inherently good or bad. And as far as my world universal view is kind of nihilistic. I don't think anything's good or bad, right or wrong. Does it get you the outcome you'd like? Period. And with alcohol, it's not the problem of anyone who's having the one drink of red wine on their anniversary to celebrate or the person going to the thing. It's understanding the intention behind why you use the drug. And this is the same for GLPs. Am I doing it to distract from my problems or am I doing it to connect to who I want to become? Am I drinking? Why am I drinking? Am I drinking for connection here, or am I drinking for distraction?
That's so true. And it kind of gets back to the community that you've created, the ecosystem essentially that you've created for people to operate inside of. How are you intentionally creating or maintaining that culture in the community, whether it's online or in person? I know that you do both, but a good chunk of it is online. You've attracted people from all over. How do you make sure that people feel safe enough to be vulnerable and then challenged enough to grow, even virtually?
I think a lot of that comes with the leader. I think that comes with the person on it. Are they constantly showing a life that is unattainable, dream, like they don't have problems, or are they in it with you? And so I share both. I share both the wins and the fails. I share the hard days. I share all of it. And so for me, being a leader means I go first. It means I'm the one who has to be vulnerable without getting prodded into it. I'm the one who has to share first. I'm the one who has to open up a hard discussion of where I feel like I'm failing, and not get stuck in that if they see me mess up, then I'm not perfect and then they won't believe me. Well, that's the thing that makes them not believe you. And so for me, it's being involved in it as well. It's not just stating that this will help. It's for thee, but not me. Like the way I look at holding that is I have to walk the walk. Like I have to do it more than anyone else. We're not competing, but I've got to damn sure hold the line. Like if I can't, as a coach and a community leader, be my best client, then how can I help someone else become it? Like if I can't take my own medicine and live my life accordingly, when I've said I've chosen this and it's not obligated to do so, how can anyone else?
What are some of those mistakes that you've made over the years in building this community where you've been able to model that?
Hundreds. I mean, all success is paved by failure. It's how many pieces of content I've put out that didn't resonate, how many sales pitches, landing pages, how many things we've tried. From years in the past, I did a Matt and Friends podcast where I traveled around and hosted a free meetup and had someone with me to do a live Q&A. I've tried so many different things. I have 4 books written. I've 5 courses done. I have hundreds of podcasts. Like it's all trying and trying something new. It's all continuing to just keep moving toward the direction that I set as my purpose. And for me, that like overall universal purpose is I want to create for a living. Anything that checks that box is worth my best attention. Whether that is inspiration, whether that is new patterning for people, whether it is writing a book, whether it is creating a podcast or content or filming a show or getting to travel and share an experience with people internationally, I don't care. I will answer it with whatever best I can give it. And I know when I do that, I feel the best. I feel the most connected to that version of who I want to be, is living as cliche as it sounds, but more as an artist. I'll figure out the entrepreneurship to answer the artist call is basically what it is.
I wish I would have known, I've only been in business for myself for 2.5 years. Before that, a solid corporate journey. And I wish I would have known when I first started my business that it was I knew I was going to be agile and that would iterate, but I didn't really understand what that meant. And as I've brought people onto my team, I've brought the people who have helped me get from here to there, but not to the future. You know what I mean? Because they felt maybe disjointed or chaotic, because I would be like, okay, well, that was weird. Let's do something different. Or, okay, I know I had that product and that was my number one product that we were focusing on, but now we're focusing on this other product because it's in better alignment, or I learned something from this client or whatever that's making me pivot. And it's wreaked a little havoc in my heart and in my business, because I was looking at it in a more solid way versus a fluid way. And that's something that I wish I could have pivoted that mindset from the beginning. I just didn't know.
But like that alone is the process. Like I can't give you that answer before you know it. Like I can't explain to you how money won't make you happy until you have enough to realize it. And that happens for people at various different levels. You know, it's some people move into a van and don't need much, and other people, you know, whatever it is, right? There's no right or wrong. It is up for you to decide what that thing is. But you can't learn any of those lessons without fucking up. Like, that's one of the things that, like, if you're an entrepreneur and you've been in the grind for 5 years, I already know some things about you. I know discipline isn't the issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, also, you can't learn unless you try. And so, like, you can't fear fucking up. And you have to realize there isn't anyone really watching. The way I trust my business, right? Like, people get stuck in having like a perfect plan before they start executing. You end up trying to solve like problem 200 before you're at problem 1, and then you get caught on it, so you don't do problem 1. And you learn the answers to problem 200 on the way there every time. So start, right? When I wanted to start coaching and really had the feeling of like, okay, we got to put some structure to this than just hosting community and doing things. What does that look like? All right, let's do some best evidence of, have I been part of a community? What have those looked like? What's the most effective for me? I've done them in Facebook groups. I've done them on Discord. I've done a couple things like that. Discord seems to be great for me because I don't have to go wade through another social media to get what I want. I can just get it and get out. I'm trying not to waste time in those places, so sending people through that swamp doesn't seem smart to me. At that point, like, we got to come up with a name and branding and a website and all these type of things. So I do the best I can at the time. I named it 1612, has to do with this reference to the time left in front of me when my father died, and so forth. And then over the last 4 years, I've changed it to Not Dead Yet. I shifted it to doing one-on-one coaching instead of just group, and having retreats and how to offer and figure all those things out. But I'm not scared to try new things. I'm not scared to change the name of my business that other people have already signed up for. Why? Because it's mine. I didn't ask anyone's input when I named it the first time. That's not why they're here. The name's not important. And what I also trust in growing my business in the process of this is there's more people who are going to find out about it in the future than have found about it yet. They'll never know it was named something else. They'll never know what the last offer was. They'll never know the piece of content they didn't see. So make the next one. Try the next thing. Try a new promotion. Try another thing every week, right? Like, for the last 2 years, we've been really consistent with, we run a free webinar every month and have kind of a course that's along with it, whether it's my vision board course of how to actually strategize and set up dreamlining and future planning and how to stay involved in that with building momentum. It is my gratitude course for teaching people like a strategic way to actually implement gratitude into their life instead of like, you need more gratitude, and no one explains shit. You know, it's 90-Day Alchemist being this transformation guide for mind, body, and spirit. So how do you put it into a tactical format once you realize what helped you? And every time you do one of those, you think maybe it'll be the thing, but they aren't. They're all steps along the process. Like, I have to find those out to get here. Like, I have to host retreats to realize I love hosting retreats, which then has opened the door for me to be invited out to help facilitate other people's retreats. You know, I have coaching clients that I teach how to build community. I have coaching clients I teach how to run their first retreat. You know, but none of those skills come without me fucking it up first. I'm just not afraid to fuck it up, because I can fuck up chasing my dreams, or I can live a safe life doing everything I'm supposed to do, and I die at the end of both of them.
Yeah, I had no clue I was going to relate so heavy to the entrepreneur community. And it's that right there that you're talking about that is so intoxicating, is being around other people who are like, this is freaking messy and I love it. And it gives me life. And this is what I was made for. Like, I had no clue. And I mean, now looking back, my corporate career served me well for 20 years and afforded me to be able to launch my business without taking it alone or having other owners. Yes.
It wasn't yours.
I needed it. Yeah. I had to do it. I'm really glad that I did, but it's not me anymore. And closing that and saying like, that was good. It doesn't have to be a bad thing that failed marriage, that
Mhm.
last corporate career, all of those things, like those they don't have to be bad to move away from them. But
I wasn't like,
I think,
I spent 13 years in a relationship and married to my ex-wife, and it wasn't a mistake. Like, that's who I was supposed to be with for that chapter of my life. I got to grow up with that person. I love her dearly. I want to see nothing but great success for her in her life. I mean, just because something no longer serves me doesn't mean it was a mistake the first time. We just outgrow things. You don't judge a t-shirt that goes out of season. Like,
yeah,
you change, or you fall into the trap and crystallize. And to me, that's one of the scariest.
it's
The
heartbreaking. It really
crystallization
is.
of men who don't change their haircut, music they listen to, community they're in, routine, habits, hobbies, anything after they're about 32 years old. As soon as stability kicks in, they're less on the pursuit of anything and totally go to switching to play defense of how do I not lose the life I've gotten, even though it doesn't align with me anymore. The hard part is realizing you got taught the recipe of success doing the supposed tos. And so now, since you have the mechanics of what gets it done long term, how do I apply that now to the thing I want to solve? Not what I'm given to solve and execute on by my, superior.
Yeah. T and I were at lunch a couple of months ago in the town that we used to live in and ran into this guy. And he was like, "Oh, good for you guys. You guys are really doing it out the farm," and had all this nice stuff to say. And we were like, "Yeah, dude, you got to do it. Like, you've been doing your thing for 10 years. If this looks and feels so good, you ought to do it." And he said, "I mean, I would love to, but I've got responsibilities." And we were both like, "Well, it was good to see you."
Yep.
And we got in the car afterward and we were like, "Does he think we don't have any responsibilities?" Like, uh, that is such a bizarre mindset that he has. Like, we have
Yeah, it's tough
responsibilities
whenever you
too.
recognize it, right? When you immediately see that self-limiting belief someone has, but like, I can't fix you. I can't
Yeah.
talk you into it. That's the deal, right? Is be the change you want to see. And so, as cliche as that is, it seems to still be true. You have to be the one to do it. Like, if you want your family to change, you have to change. You can't just yell at them from the sidelines about what needs to be done. You have to be the example and prove it's a safe path to go on. Ultimately, your exterior world will reflect your interior one. It's not the other way around.
Yeah. Very true. Let's talk about your books a little
Sure.
bit. First of all, I knew you had one,
Yep. The other ones are
and I knew
less
that you'd written
important for
another
what I
one.
currently do. I wrote my
Okay.
first book on how to strength train and plan out a full season for the Highland Games. Right, what you know about, right? Like, so I did that one.
Yeah.
That had a chapter in it about the hate, which became my brand for 10 years. Wrote 2 more books about training for the Highland Games and then a general strength training with Strength Lab. And in those books, wrote about as much of my, not just mechanic of how to do, but why I do it, why I think this way. And over the transitional years, I would say, from going from that life to this one, I started journaling a lot. And I, had a habit of writing anyway, but not necessarily as self-reflective writing. And so now getting into that habit and writing more to try to get my ideas on these different epiphanies I had from being around new people or groups or retreats or things I had done, whether that's psychedelics or therapy or anything else. But how do I take that light bulb moment of realization and actually put it into play? How do I implement it? And so using the journaling to make sure I get a good grasp on what I want to implement, what the thought process is, even if I'm recognizing an old pattern, an old trap, how do I get my way out? And so over the course of a number of years, we took those and we put them into coffee table book.
Okay.
Coffee table book. So here is a insight to my brain and where one of the limitations of business tends to go, right?
Okay.
Writing the book, getting the book done. It's a mixture of 52 single page essays, a journal prompt, and then usually photos from our travel around the world with our community, various things for added inspiration to take control of your life. I knew at some point, like, my creative source was like I want a coffee table book on my table with our photos in it. And so I start making that. And as I start making that, I realize I want to start adding some text to it. Well, shit, what's valuable? Well, I've got these things we've written over the years. We may as well filter those down from the 400 I have or so, the years of writing and Monday motivation emails and everything I've sent out into these 52 poignant things on one kind of idea. So I started going back through those, filter them out, get them into the book, get the book designed, blah, 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 blah. Now we have a book. My pursuit of wanting the book I wanted, which is this 10-inch by 10-inch full colored thing, because I had written books in the past, I assumed that once it gets done, I can upload it to Amazon's Kindle thing or a KDP marketplace, and it'll be print on demand and have it there on Amazon. Then I can do the audiobook, etc. Blah, 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 blah. Well, they don't print on demand 10 by 10 color books.
Oh, shoot.
Me neither. Yet, this is the fucking book I wanted to make. So it gets made. So figuring out the next step now is, how do I turn this into a companion piece that has more room for journaling in it with the essays and less pictures that I can print on demand and have accessible easier, which then gives me a reason. So I have to have a book with an EIN number so that I can then have an audiobook. So it's the step process of realizing what finishing a book is. Do I want to write a book or do I want to sell a book? Those are different goals. I'm already done with the write a book goal. I want to sell a book. And so figuring out how to do that is a different step in the process. I know lots of the answers, which are putting it out there, being on podcasts for the next 6 months, collecting content, doing those things to actually promote it. My comfort zone is create the next thing. Polishing isn't it. Yeah. And after 10 years of running my business, I'm okay enough to admit that that's where the focus needs to go. And any current ideas that seem fun, I have to avoid until this is finished.
Disciplining.
To some degree. But also then, because I do recognize truth that my life is a bit sporadic and I travel a lot and I'm not always in an office 9 to 5 to accomplish a single job, I take away the feeling of it has to be done by this date. I don't need a boot on my neck to give a shit about my life anymore. I give a shit. I much more need to figure out how I slow myself down so that I give a shit long-term enough to accomplish what I want to. That I have to get reconnected to what's the overall purpose here of I get to create for a living. The problems to solve of doing that now are, how do I sell a book? The creation process was for me and done from source and done from that feeling of what I want to accomplish with it.
So who's the reader of this book?
Reader for this book. It's pretty much standard demographic for coaching for me, right? It is this person who has gotten to that point in their life to go, what now? What now? Is it just this? This is it for the rest of it? I just show up to work from these dates. I go to the place, I do this thing, and then I come home and do the same shit. And every day is on autopilot. They all blend together. And I can't decipher the last 20 years of my life. It's someone who's come to that realization and is fucking terrified of it. That I will have wasted my existence because I can't decipher any of the days. They all just blend together. And that to me is my biggest fear. And so this book is about being present, and it's how to sort those things out in your head and give you some different awareness of what to dive into. These are the 52 essays that got me out of the dark, along with photos of look at the fucking life you can live. I don't care whether or not you want mine. I want you to be as in love with yours as I am mine.
So the beautiful one is done.
Beautiful one's done.
And when does the next iteration of it come?
I am waiting to get cover art back from my design team, Brand. I say team, it's Brand. So that I can drop that into KDP and get the rest of the process started. Manuscript's done, all those things are done, but when you go to make a book, the cover has to be laid out a certain way with certain bleed on it so that it looks like this as a single image with the spine and everything else measured to knowing how many pages in your book, vice versa, which you can't do until you get manuscript and upload to know how many pages it'll. It's the next problem. So in the next week or so, I probably have that.
Okay.
And then audiobook, I finished recording probably the guts of it are done. So like all the chapters are done. The other pieces I want to add to it, like some of those topics I want a longer conversation about. So myself and one of the coaches in my community, Josh, is interviewing me podcast style about that thing.
Oh,
And
cool.
so that way the audiobook has its own thing, right? For me personally, I don't read a lot of books, like holding a book. I listen to audio. And so it felt really disingenuous for me not to provide that side of it for a reader. That's how I uptake information. So why would I not speak to former me in a way that he could get it?
The book publishing process, that is no lie. It is painful. This is my book that I've written.
Yeah.
And I've written 3 of them, but only 1 has been published. And I had this timeline that I'd set out, and
Define published.
it's on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's for sale on Amazon. And
Self-published, yeah.
Well, I use selfpublishing.com.
Okay, cool.
So I went through their process, and so I had a paid editor and, went through all of that, had a graphic design team, a promoting team that did my ads on Amazon and all of that. And I thought writing the book was the hard part.
No, you're back to step 1.
And I had no clue. I wrote like 932 pages and met with my coach, and she was like, "That's 3 books, not 1. That's horrible. Unless you want to sell it to colleges only.
No one has time
one's
for
gonna
that
read
shit."
that." Yeah, she's like, "No one wants to read this. It reads like a guide, like a textbook kind of, it's like, you want to do this? This is the book for you." And so we broke it down into 3 books. So that really slowed my process down, because I had to think about, okay, like I've got essentially 15 chapters in this one book. How do I break it down to 3? What's the natural flow? But really the publishing process is where I was like, okay, I'll throw it into publishing and then we'll be cruising. Mm-hmm. And that process took like 6 months.
Yeah. So I've self-published all of mine. I had a book deal for a little bit with a publisher, and we had a difference of opinion of what we think the book should be. And so we went separate ways. The reason I self-publish at this point is I don't want to slow down. I get too frustrated with that process that it kills any of my creativity. And so I'd rather just do it my way. Fuck them.
And if you're the person who feels like you can figure it out, which I know we both are, to me, other people, I want their expertise. I respect what they've done, all of that. So I want them to download it to me. I want to research. I want to understand. And then I want to roll with myself, because I can figure it out, because they did.
Yeah, that's it, so right? That's one of those things. You can either use comparison and let it be that thief, or you can use comparison to realize other people can do it. And if someone else can do it, I bet I can figure out my version of it, not theirs. Like that's the thing, is thinking that someone else's path and problem solving has anything to do with yours. They don't. Like, you are where you're at in your life right now because of your actions, your reactions, and the unique set of life circumstances that Kerri has had to deal with. That's it. Not bad luck, not good luck, simply that. Everything falls into that. So that gap that we think we're in where we should be by now is horseshit. It's made up on fairy tale shit. The comparison doesn't just steal joy. It also steals how hard we work, because we know people work harder. We also we steal pride from ourselves because other people have had it harder. So we end up playing both ways. We don't just tell ourselves what we don't have and let it steal how good the things that we have in our life are, but we let it steal our trauma, our pain, our frustration, our problem solving, our pride, because other people have done more.
Always. Yes.
So the realization is there somewhere with my book, my income, my business, all these type of things, right? I probably accomplished less than Elon. So that puts me and you on the same page.
Yes. Yes. Well, I have loved this. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram. The easiest way is Matthew P. Vincent is my personal page. And then Not Dead Yet _life is the brand and the coaching. My book is available on the site, Not Dead Yet Life, or indylife.com. Also very easy to reach, matt@mattvincent.net.
Okay. That's perfect. We will link all of that in the show notes. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap today?
We just wrapped up our 8th men's retreat here in St. Louis. I have another one April 9th through 12th, and then we will have a fall retreat for men again in October of 2026. My retreats have been filling up about 8-10 months advance. And so anyone that's interested in getting in, please reach out. I would love to have you there and be able to offer you a chance to join our community. For anyone who's looking for community and coaching in this regard, who's more accountable and doesn't need one-on-one hand-holding and just needs environment and support, reach out, please. Join our community. Not dead yet. It's been incredible. We have a couple hundred members. We keep it very active in a Discord. We have free meetups throughout the year. You've attended one. This work will change your life if you decide to commit to it. You can get out of your own way and get out of that constant feeling of not being enough.
You mentioned one-on-one coaching is available with you too. How do people access that?
Same way to reach out. I've got a questionnaire I usually send out if someone's interested. And then from there, we talk and figure out what problem it is you specifically would like to work on for the next 3 months. Come up with a bit of a plan and start executing on it. But it's a real strategic way to apply these mindset things that are a bit more ethereal.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, last thing I want to ask before we wrap. You're prepping for a trip to Uganda. Tell us.
I leave Wednesday for my 4th trip, I think. Yeah, that makes sense. 4th trip to Uganda. For the last 2 years, I've been working with a buddy of mine, Justin Wren. And he started and owns a nonprofit called Fight for the Forgotten. So they've been around for the last 13 years, providing clean drinking water, housing, and kind of whole community support in Western Uganda for the Batwa Pygmy people. Justin's got an incredible story about how he fell into this, and so I'll let him tell it better than me. But I got asked to come on board and help film content over there since they didn't have any support like anyone else, right? Like Justin's been running this thing for 13 years. And you just kind of assume all the pieces are in place. But him, just like me, don't know what we're fucking doing. Also, so coming on board with the skills that I've developed for the last 15 years of content creation and consistency and systems in place, we lined a bunch of that up for them with getting emails on board and recreating branding and helping them redo their website, putting some funnels in place to better actually get to chat with people who are donating. And continue to tell the story of what the work is we're doing over in Uganda. And so this trip this year, I'm actually going over to kind of train and transition over to a Ugandan team, continuing to follow through on all the systems we put in place. And so really excited about that challenge this trip. I'll be in Uganda for 2 weeks. We'll head down to southern Uganda where there's a new community in Kiasoro that we're going to go start supporting that are about 150 people essentially living at a trash dump, totally homeless other than whatever the cardboard shanty thing is they're building. And so we're starting to go down there and work. We have another community up in northern Uganda in Oligaba that we've got 32 houses built for and a community center that we've been working on for the last year going in, which will provide healthcare for mothers. It'll really, really curb infant mortality in that area. We are also dealing with a population that's probably 30 to 40% HIV positive. So we have some support for that, as well as different educational options for vocational school. We're teaching hairdressing and tailoring. We're teaching barbershop. We're teaching farming and those type of things. And we're going back over to show what progress has been made. And it's been a really eye-opening thing. As much as I'm a cliche white guy in his 40s to go to Africa and have his life change, here we are. Coming back from my first trip, it was blatantly obvious that I don't have any problems. I have stress. And the only stress I have is because I want my life to be better, not get to okay, not survive. Yet I trigger and believe they are. Being able to recalibrate to what having real problems looks like is nice.
It is. I have I don't mean mixed feelings in a negative way. My husband and I have gone to Harmon's, Jamaica, to a similar type of missional trip, building houses and things like that there. And one of the guys, we were taking a walk one day, and one of the Jamaican guys, and I was talking to him about things that he could do. And he was telling me he had lived in Canada before and had chosen to come back to Harmons, Jamaica, where there's no running water, no clean water at all. And I was like, talk to me about that. You know, you lived somewhere else that was developed and you chose to come back here. And he said, Americans in particular, like, want to fix us, but I'm happy and I have everything I need right here.
There's that.
And I was like, dang.
So the thing that was really tough for me to ignore was second trip we went over, we had a water celebration where we had turned over a new borehole that we had put into a community that serves about 3,000 people. Prior to that, the water walk they did, which we took part in, and I have a video of on my YouTube channel called
I watched that. Yeah.
No, that was a 6-mile, 3,000-foot elevation trek that these people are doing once or twice a day to get water. Like, if I don't do that, we die, right? Like, we don't have water. Most Americans burn through about 300 gallons a day between bath and dishwasher and washing machines and any number of other things. You're talking about your 6-hour trek yields 5 gallons. That also needs to be boiled, which means firewood needs to be collected too. Like, there's no simple steps. Even with that, with the hardship, with these people having one set of clothing, with 10 people crammed in a 10 by 30 house, they're not unhappy. They're sure as shit not miserable. They have hardship. So trying to digest that, right? Like, why? What's the difference? What is it they figured out that we don't do well? And the only thing I could come down to was community. That because they are living simpler or more primitive or whatever we want to call it, that food, water, and shelter are still top concerns. Not self-actualization, which is where we are. Maslow's hierarchy of needs on the way to self-actualization is food, water, shelter, community, belonging, love, sex, self-actualization. We're trying to skip the middle section. They aren't. And the reason they aren't is because it's built in. Because I need someone to get firewood. Like, everyone's useful. Everyone in the community that's there in physical proximity is needed. Right? Like, I don't need my neighbors. I don't need them to help me with firewood. I don't need them to solve a single one of my problems. So I don't know who they are anymore. So Americans have isolated due to this chase of self-actualization that doesn't come unless you have the community, belonging, and love anyway. So we're trying to skip that step. And because things are so still basic for them, they have it in droves. And they are around the fire every night. And they are singing and dancing every day with nothing. And that was really eye-opening.
If somebody's listening and they're inspired by that, or, you know, it touches their heart and they want to get involved, what's the website, or how do people find out more about that?
Fightfortheforgotten.org or fftf.org.
All right, Matt, this has been awesome. It's been powerful. I just thank you for bringing your honesty and your story and, oh, of course, always your energy to this conversation. I think what's so refreshing about your message is that it's not about staying a past version of yourself or chasing an image. It's about being radically accountable to who you're becoming. And that's really true leadership. And I hope we've inspired some folks today. For everyone listening, if you're in a season of change and you're questioning what's next, or if you're just tired of going through the motions, I highly recommend you dive deeper into Matt's work, and we'll make sure to link in the show notes how to find him. And if today's episode resonated, take a moment to rate it on Don't Waste the Chaos on Spotify, Apple, or follow us on YouTube. Until next time, remember, you're not dead yet, so don't waste the chaos.